Last time on Growing Lilies. Lily heads back to her old apartment to charge up some more chaos balls. But being Lily, she has to fuck it up somehow, so she gets overpowered by the spell and passes out. She dreams about Star driving a car while having a therapy session with her in the passenger seat. She wakes up and notices that she has glowing wounds all over her body. When Lily goes to sleep at home, Star wants to cook some food for her, but since he is a dog, it doesn't go too well, and Lily wakes up to a smoking stove. Later, she goes to study the basement spell and gets a gut feeling that it is a teleportation spell, so she decides that it is. She goes back to other spooky spots and places down more chaos balls, but when she gets to the new one, the drive-in movie theater, Star starts to talk. So this spooky spot is a translation spell. Since Lily is happy to finally be able to communicate with Star properly, she wants to hang around for a bit longer. They drive home to get everything they need for a movie night at the drive-in. The next morning, they get attacked by a magical raccoon, escapes, and finds a bandana for Star and earrings for Lily that she puts the translation spell onto so they can communicate at all times. Chapter 36. It was a few hours later they found themselves pulling off the road and into La Mancha. It was later than Lily expected to be arriving, but she and Star had needed some time to emotionally recover from their ordeal. Plus, it was nice to be around the house and able to talk to one another. But eventually, duty called. Now that they had arrived, Lily had one major goal in mind: to set things up so that if she didn't make it back, all these animals wouldn't die starving in cages. Near the start of all this, Lily had forced herself to accept that she couldn't be responsible for all the animals around the world. But she'd taken an active interest in this little farm, and it felt wrong to just not worry about such a thing. Thankfully, she had what she thought was a solid idea for a dead man's switch, and she was here to put it into action. As Lily and Star got out of the car, Donk trotted over. Sancho was riding on his back. It was a very silly sight. You two must actually be pretty good friends, huh? For a split second, she wondered if her translation spell would allow her to understand anything from these two, but the answer seemed to be no. It made sense that it had limits. Lily wondered if with some modification she could actually use it to communicate directly with normal animals. It seemed like there was some way to make it happen, although they probably wouldn't have much to say, and definitely nothing interesting. What? Roasting all animals. Still, it might have helped her avoid conflict or diagnose that raccoon. Oh well, things to think about. Later. Star's voice snapped her out of her thoughts. They are partners. In what sense? Lily looked suspiciously at the donkey and goose. Oh my god. They protect La Mancha. Donk takes care of large threats, and Sancho repels the small ones and pays more attention to the smaller animals. Huh. Well, they seem to do a good job. Farm cops. Maybe Turner and Hooch would have been better names. Nah, I like these. I didn't get that reference either. Where do the names come from? Oh, TV shows. Like we've been watching. Well, Turner and Hooch are. Don Quixote and Sancho are from an old book. A really famous story. What is a book? Lily frowned. Right. Okay, so there are these things made of paper that hold information. Sometimes stories, other times knowledge or whatever else. Like my notes, only with a story instead of magic stuff inside. Oh, then what does the story say? It's about a knight, a protector of sorts. Well, he's not really a knight. Don Quixote is a man who gets very invested in stories, and after reading a bunch of books about famous adventures and protectors and good deeds, he gets inspired, or goes crazy. It's a little bit of both, I think. He declares himself a knight too, like the characters in his stories, and goes around doing good things. Even though he's a little crazy, he eventually makes friends and followers, like Sancho, because he's just going around making things better and helping people. At least, that's how I remember the story going. Oh, So it's a very noble name. The name of a great knight protector. It's very fitting. Lily smiled. She thought so too. Then it was time to get to work. She let Star go off and play with the knight and his squire. She had spent a good amount of time working out a plan that wouldn't use any glyph she didn't already understand the workings of. Lily was done taking magical risks if they could be avoided. The only exception was the basement. It was a bit of a leap of faith, but Entity B had saved her life a few times now, so she was doing her best to trust despite her fear. For now, though, her work was simple. She created one central circle running the light spell. This circle was drawn in the dirt so the rain would wash it away. It had become her favorite mana sink when trying to just discharge excess. Then, on each of the blocks to the animal cages, she created a smaller circle with the heat to mana glyph, and a simple not gate that would make the circle fail if mana wasn't getting used up by the light. The scars on her hands, and presumably the rest of her body, were still becoming opalescent and glowing whenever she cast spells, but the pain was becoming duller. She was still hopeful that the issue would go away, but it was looking less and less likely, so she shrugged it off and continued her work. From there, she got a bucket of water and just poured slowly over the lock, leaving it unlatched, until ice had formed to hold it shut. This ended up being the portion that took the most time, but she tried to be patient with it. When enough ice had formed, Lily could grab the door and jostle it as hard as she could without it coming open. She moved on to the next gate, and the next, and the next. The process ended up taking close to 3 hours, but at least it was simple, fairly risk-free work. Lily would never have guessed that she'd enjoy being on a farm. Maybe she wouldn't if she was taking a more active role, but she thought she'd kind of like to spend more time here in the future, maybe learning how to actually run this place. By the time she was done, the sun was starting to set. It was hardly a mystery of magic, but it felt good to work for hours on spells and have everything just go right for once. She wasn't sure her skills were worth the price she paid for them, but she was feeling proud about what she was able to accomplish now. "Star, let's get going!" The sound of paws running through the dirt approached rapidly, and he hopped into the car ready to go. Lily had to laugh. For a second, she felt like an upper-class girl living on her farm, with a well-trained dog excited to go on an adventure in the before times. When they were buckled in and on the road, she spoke up. "All right, I think it's time for some fun. Let's have a good time tonight and tomorrow, before we activate the spell, huh? Right, we're gonna watch the movie about the dog." Ain't no rule says a dog can't play basketball. Oh, fucking those movies. They were curled up in Lily's car, watching her choice of movie, Air Bud. Oh my gosh. Lily was starting to regret picking the film. It was sillier than she remembered. A lot sillier. But when she looked over at Star, he did seem to be enjoying herself. He did seem to be enjoying himself. Finally, she paused for a minute because she had to ask. "Hey, is this, bad?" "What? What could be bad?" "The movie. This is how all dogs were before everyone vanished, you know?" "They could all play basketball so well? Then what is the point of the movie?" No, not like that. They weren't as smart as you. None of them were. So that's why they're treating Buddy like that. I just wondered if you knew or if it was maybe offensive." "I don't understand. I know not all of my kind are as smart as me. Why is this a problem?" Okay, well, I just wanted to make sure. You know, he doesn't have a lot of actual agency in the movie. I was worried I hadn't thought it through." "He is a hero!" "For playing basketball?" "What? No! How do you not understand? The point of the movie. It has nothing to do with basketball." Lily gave Star a look. "Humans sure thought it did, and they made it. What do you mean?" "Buddy is limited by his intelligence, but he has a skill and a purpose. He was defied the odds in order to make a sad human puppy feel happy again. He's doing great things. He is a hero." I guess I hadn't looked at it that way. This is so. It's not perfect. The threat of the snively man taking Buddy away because he cannot speak for himself is sad and a bit strange for me. But it is a good movie. Buddy is a hero. I like heroes. Well, okay then. I guess I was worried for nothing. I have a feeling you're going to like the next one even more, though, in that case. She was right. Star enjoyed Balto a lot more. Oh my god, fucking Balto. To the point that they had to watch the entire film a second time. Lily was more than happy to oblige, since she hadn't seen him this excited since they became able to communicate. When the movie was over, Star just wanted to run, so Lily climbed up onto the roof of her car and they played a game. It was time for fetch. They had a big open lot to themselves, and Lily got a nice tall advantage point. Okay, Star, are you ready? Here's the rules. The ball is gonna stay within the theater grounds. If it goes out of bounds, I lose the throw. If you catch it before it hits the ground at all, I lose the throw. If you catch it after a single bounce, we're even. And if it bounces twice, I win and you lose. First one to get 3 points wins, okay? Yes, throw it. I'm going to win. I'm fast like Balto. You can't beat me. It was fun hearing his voice, but also hearing his excited barks underneath it, and seeing his wagging tail and happy face. Okay, get ready. Here we go. Lily launched the ball as hard as she could. Her first trick was simple. She wanted to make it look like it was going to go out of bounds so Star would stop chasing it, but really she was going to bounce it off the movie screen. He saw through it easily, and he was fast, notably faster than before even. As he came trotting back to her triumphantly, Lily grinned at him. Geez, you really are tough to beat. How fast are you going to get anyway? I'm pretty sure you're already faster than most dogs before magic was here. Star's tail wagged harder, and he spoke with palpable excitement. I'll always be just fast enough to outrun your throws, Master, so please do your best for me. He dropped the ball looking just too smug, so Lily picked it up with an evil grin. Oh yeah? I'll have you know I've been holding back a trick, so you better get ready to really go all out of this time. Star visibly braced himself. Lily held back her laugh. She wound up a throw, and as Star bolted away, she simply dropped the ball softly in front of her. He saw the ball leave her hand, and she could see the look of horror on his face as he realized what had happened. But that wasn't all. Lily activated the spell and sent the ball plummeting straight down far harder than gravity could have made it. It hit the ground before Star had even stopped skidding to a halt to turn around. But Lily had made a mistake. It bounced, it shot upward, flying so high it was difficult to see, especially at night. Lily only knew where it was because she was still magically connected to it. She could see Star searching for it, and just like that, he spotted it. He bolted, covering an insane distance in no time at all. Almost all the way across the lot. He had to dive to get it, but a second later he was trotting back triumphantly with the ball in his mouth. Lily couldn't even be mad. After exhausting themselves playing fetch and a bleary ride home, the two had collapsed into bed and got a full night's sleep. Now Lily awoke slowly. She decided to remain in bed and allow herself to take her time. Light snores were emanating from the dog laid out on the bed next to her. Star could really take a lot of room when he tried, and Lily was thankful for the oversized mattress in the master bedroom. Although the back seat of the car had a certain charm to it too. It was a comfort, being cuddled up with someone you trusted. That wasn't a feeling Lily had ever really expected to have. She wondered if it'd be the same with a romantic partner, or if those feelings would get in the way of enjoying the simple closeness. Not that it mattered now. She wasn't going to find anyone, much less someone compatible. But that was fine. She had Star to cuddle with, her companion. She was glad for that too, because today was going to be one heck of a day. She planned to take the morning easy and check off a few things she'd be sad if she didn't get to do here. It wasn't a bucket list, but if they teleported away and couldn't get back easily, she didn't want to miss a few things. Then it would be time to gather the emeralds and set off her spell. It was that simple. Just do it. Never mind being scared out of her mind. Just go for it. What's the worst that could happen? Casting a teleportation spell wrong and blasting every one of her component atoms across the universe like a Magitech version of Osiris? Osiris? At least it probably wouldn't hurt. Okay, this was an unproductive line of thoughts. Lily roused herself and carefully got out of bed to avoid waking Star. She had a few things she could get done to facilitate today's events without waking him. So she got out of bed and snuck into the main house. The sun was still pretty low in the sky, and outside everything had an early morning light to it, complete with some dew. Lily spent a short amount of time loading all the eggs from the car into the house, and then into the backyard. She had a plan for them, but that was for later. She hated to admit it, but the elk carcass would have to go after the spell. It had been keeping well enough as far as she could tell without doing a taste test, but the whole front half laid out and picked cleaner and cleaner every day was only getting more horrific to look at. She was done looking through the sliding glass door out at the sea and seeing a skinless face with dead eyes still locked in lidless sockets staring at her. Oh my god. So morbid. Star had seemed to enjoy it quite a bit though. She ought to spend some time teaching him about food safety, so that in the future, if he was willing to catch and cook things, he'd be able to do it safely. Then again, she didn't know more than the basics either. Well, time for that later. As she drank a morning bottle of wine, Star came trotting out of the bedroom, looking a little blary. She wasn't sure she was truly feeling it, but she made sure to give him a big welcoming grin. Hey there, Sleepy. I was just making plans for our last pre-spell morning. I got some ideas. Wanna hear? Star perked up almost immediately. Ideas? Yes, yes, Lady Flamewalker. Tell me your ideas. Please, please. It was always so funny to see him excited. He really was such a deep thinker. But the puppy part of him still rose to the surface when he was excited or happy, and always brought a smile to his face. And it always makes me cringe to say it. I was thinking we invite your friends over and have a feast. You can keep them under control, right? We have more eggs than we will ever be able to eat. I figured we would leave them a gift and give you a chance to try barbecue on what's left of the stag. What do you say? So weird. Yes, yes, I will go get them right now, yes? Go on then. I'll see if I can find blankets and stuff for you all to sit on. Really, that was more for Lily than anyone else. She was certain the dogs wouldn't care about sitting directly on the ground, but watching them all have seats while Star fed them sounded incredible. Although Lily had some ulterior motives too. Star had been so wonderful to her. He really deserved a reward. Lily wasn't sure what things were going to be like after today, so she wanted him to have that time. Meanwhile, she was going to do some packing. A backpack full of essentials would be lovely. She wanted to have everything she might need when she got wherever she was going. No starting again from zero. Just north of a little town on the ocean, a strange scene was unfolding. The idyllic little city was slowly getting overtaken by nature, and near everything was silent, except for that one very special house. A mansion, really. And outside that mansion was a scene that would have only existed in a painting or on TV in all of human history until now. A dog was having a cookout for his dog friends, although mostly they were gorging themselves on raw eggs, while a flustered dog tried to figure out the barbecue. Lily had helped him get it lit though, and while none of the tools or indeed even the barbecue itself were meant to be operated without thumbs, Star was slowly figuring out how to get things to work. He was doing his best to use tongs in his mouth when Lily went back inside to do some packing. She was surprised. She had expected a pack of wild dogs to be pretty rowdy, but not only were they shockingly orderly, but they had been downright polite to her. Well, for dogs. When they arrived, they had lined up and bowed. What? They had been very careful not to look her in the eyes and not to touch her or ruin anything, although the translation spell didn't really have much effect. Star had mentioned being able to understand the others slightly better, though. She was beginning to wonder if most animals were getting more intelligent, or if it was because this pack was in close proximity to Star. She hoped it wasn't all of them, or that there was an upper limit. Otherwise, she was a little worried about some of the naturally more intelligent and aggressive animals in the world. Like, what was going to happen if she ever ran into chimps? She shuddered. After only a little digging around in the garage, she was able to find a nice backpack. It looked like the sort that had once been used for hiking or camping, which was perfect for Lily's use. It even had a sleeping bag rolled up on top of it. She wasn't totally sure how to roll that pack up after using it, but if she ended up having to spend a night somewhere, that would really come in handy. She had pretty limited space though, and had to figure that Entity B wouldn't be sending her someplace to rough it. So she wasn't going to worry about a tent for now. Instead, she packed up pain meds, band-aids, a few bottles of water, clean clothes, her spell shock, her notebooks, her best laptop, her phone, some Twinkies, a toothbrush, and the remainder of the duck feet. Wow, no Rockstar. Finally, she secured Bade to the top of the backpack. Can't go anywhere without you, buddy. Just when she thought she was done, another thought struck her. She dug around in the master bedroom until she found a credit card. It was a long shot, but it was small, and if wherever she was going had electricity and anything automated, it might come in handy. If not, it was still a hard plastic tool, good for some manual work. In an extreme pinch, she might even be able to draw a spell circle on it or something. With that, she was finally done, so she found her way to the backyard again. Star perked up immediately when she arrived. Master, you're back! Welcome back! I have been missing you. Where have you been? Will you eat some elk? I'm good. I was just packing up and getting ready. I wanted to let you enjoy your time here before we went. You deserve some time to have fun with your friends. Star carefully approached Lily and nipped at her arm. Hey, what is it this time? It is not a reward without you here to enjoy it with me. Oh. Lily almost teared up at that. Instead, she pointed to the barbecue. Your meat's gonna burn. Star looked alarmed and turned back to the cooking. Lily laughed. The girl felt like she'd been doing a lot more of that lately. A lot more even than before everything happened. Thanks, Star. You're right. Let's party for a while then. That morning, in that small backyard on the coast of California, a girl and her companion enjoyed their reward for making it so far. The girl introduced a pack of dogs to music, danced with animals, tried a very small bite of week-old elk meat, and rewatched Balto. All in all, it was the best morning she could remember ever having. Well, that's nice, at least. I'm amazed she didn't vomit at the elk meat. Chapter 37. After the festivities of the morning, it was a pretty uneventful trip to pack up the Chaos Emeralds. She was surprised to find that the ambient mana of the spooky spots had lowered considerably. Only the one around her apartment really seemed like it qualified as a spooky spot at all anymore. But the Chaos Emeralds were charged. That's all that mattered. Lily did one last stop by La Mancha while she was in the area, although it was mostly used to check and make sure her dead man spells were still intact. They were, so she patted Donk a few times and headed home. They rode mostly in silence. There was nothing that really needed to be said, and they'd already partied themselves out for the day. Star took a quick nap and Lily focused on the task at hand, which led them back home, and inevitably to standing outside the elevator, staring at it. Well, this is it. Are you ready? I am ready. We will easily clear this trial and continue forward with our lives together, Master. Huh, don't you sound confident? I am. How? We have no idea what will happen down there. I know what will happen down there. Wait, really? What do you mean? Star looked up at her, and a bit of his confidence seeped into her soul. We will work together, and whatever happens, we will keep each other safe. Nothing else matters. What if we fail? And we fail, and we will face the consequences together. But what if Star barked, and it surprised Lily into silence. Then he spoke again. No, we will protect each other. Do what you must do, master. I will help how I can. Lily smiled, then nodded. After a second of hesitation, she reached down and pressed the button. The elevator doors opened. She stepped inside with her companion and began the descent. The basement was just as she remembered it. As she turned on the lights and they flickered to life, she was in a large empty space with a giant spell circle laid out on the floor. Lily could already see where the emeralds would slot in to activate the spell. Well, nothing left to do but go for it. Between the two of them, they started placing the emeralds when they belonged. It was surprisingly anticlimactic. Lily could swear she'd seen a number of movies, TV shows, and books where there had been a scene like this. In all of them, the protagonist quickly slotted the keystones in the sockets or whatever. It only occurred to Lily now that they usually used clever editing to avoid those awkward moments that involved walking across a vast space holding a lot of large stones and figuring out which one went where. Despite that, only a few minutes later, Lily was standing above the last little alcove, holding the purple Chaos Emerald. You know, that always seemed weird to me. What, master? I stole the name Chaos Emeralds from a game, a story type of thing that I like. But emeralds are a specific stone that's usually green. It turns out, in the language that story came from, emerald can be a generic name for any gem. But when it's translated to my language, it seems weird. This is probably more like a chaos amethyst, you know? What I know is that you are nervous, so you are stalling by getting into your own head about something that doesn't matter. Ha! You know me so well. Lily put the stone down. Magic began to flow from it. Then it stopped. Huh? In fact, none of the Chaos Emeralds were discharging more than what it took to fill the circles they were sat in. Lily looked around the circle curiously. That's weird. How do I actually activate it then? It's powered up. So she traced one of the lines leading to the Chaos Emerald she was standing next to, and found it lead all the way to the center of the circle. There, in small filigree, she noticed something she hadn't before. It was ornate and not designed in the more uniform circuits she used, but it was definitely similar. Oh, this is a logic gate. Wait, it only lets the spell activate if I put a tiny bit of mana in. Oh man, does that mean I didn't invent magical circuity? That's a bummer. And this is way prettier than my design too. Seems to do the same thing though. She took a close look, making sure she wasn't missing anything. This is fucking genius! A voice came from the dog beside her. Don't swear. What is it, master? It needs me to put a little mana in to actually activate the spell, but it's charged up. Tensed. The best example I have is a mantis shrimp. Ugh, mantis shrimp. What is a mantis shrimp, and what does it have to do with this magic? They're these little guys that live in the water, but they can punch super, super hard. See, how they do it is they have this little latch in their arm. Basically, instead of winding up, they close the latch and then strain their muscles. Then they open the little latch and their arm immediately moves at full speed rather than having to accelerate. I don't understand. Or maybe it's the same as snapping my fingers. Here, look at this. When I snap my fingers, like this, the snapping sound is caused by my fingers hitting my palm, see? She demonstrated a few times. But if I don't start with my thumb and I just move my middle finger as fast as I can to hit my palm, it's a lot slower. Because when I do it properly, I'm building up tension against my thumb before it moves out of the way. I feel like this is not necessary. Star stared at her hard for a few seconds, then replied lazily. What does this have to do with the spell, Keeper of Duck Feet? Don't worry, I packed those by the way. Anyway, see, the spell is charged up. It cycled a few times, draining mana from the Chaos Emeralds. and it's just waiting to get this signal to start. That means it's probably going to go full force and use a ton of mana the second it starts, rather than having any wind-up time like a lot of my spells do. To put it simply, when I cast my Light Ball spell, it slowly comes into being. If I did it like this, I could probably turn it on and off like a light switch. Isn't that cool? Master, we're not down here so you can marvel at spell design. Lily pouted. Fine. Let's do it then. Without skipping a beat, Lily reached down and poured a little mana into the spell. Sure enough, it followed the connection and activated the gates holding the spell from starting. A sudden jolt sent her to the floor. It took a second for her to realize that nothing had pushed her. The ground had shifted. It also wasn't done. The ground was shaking in ways she'd only ever seen in videos of strong earthquakes from around the world. The house groaned on top of her. What is happening, Master? I think the spell is just doing what it's supposed to do. Brace yourself. The feeling of static in the air was building in the room. She could feel it. She could smell it. It was like right before lightning struck. It was flowing through her. This was magic. Everything Lily had done with spells up until now was put into perspective in a second. Even the spell that gave her scars had been nothing compared to this. This was power, raw and coursing, pouring through the room. It was the difference between a bathtub and the ocean. It was the difference between a candle and a forest fire. This was what magic was really capable of. And it was also tearing apart the room. Lily got a grip and forced herself to pay attention to her surroundings. The house above her was still groaning. Bits of drywall were falling off the walls and disintegrating. Disintegrating? Lily realized with horror. The spell was breaking them down into mana. What? It was absorbing things outside the spell to activate. Star, don't leave the circle for any reason. It's dissolving things into mana. Like a monster let loose, it was devouring everything around it. The walls were losing structure. Lily frantically thought about what she could do. She tried to reach out to see about putting a circle up on the walls, even though she couldn't think of anything that would help, and instantly felt mana flowing into her from the absurd pressure of it all around her. It hurt. She gave up immediately and searched for something else to do. Star was standing near her protectively, but he was equally unsure. A terrible tearing sound began above her. Lily looked up in horror as the spell began eating through the ceiling over her head. No, 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 no! The house might come down. Get to the edge of the circle, but not outside it. If stuff starts coming down, try to find the spot most secure against falling things. One big piece could take either one of us out, and I can't cast. Understood. They made their way to the edge of the circle, and watched as the ceiling above them started bowing in. Lily was desperate for anything she could do to keep herself safe, but nothing was working. A levitation spell like this concrete slab. Not without using the mana of the circle, and last time she did that, she got poked full of holes from the inside out. Could she turn off the spell? No. Now that it was running, the switch that started it wasn't going to do anything. There had to be something she could do. A section of flooring from the room above broke off and fell into the circle. There was an explosion of wood dust and hopefully not fiberglass. Lily coughed as it settled. Something she could use? It was in the circle. She had it. She ran forward and threw down her backpack, digging around in it for a second. She came out with her spell shock. Inscriber of Power! Don't fail me now! She couldn't cast with her own mana, but she could cast if she used something else. Her hands flew across the wood, drawing circle after circle. It felt like instinct was taking over, like she was hardly even thinking about what to draw. It was just pouring out of her as a pure magical expression. Star tackled her from the side just in time to prevent the sofa from falling down the hole onto her. Lily dove forward again, driving the shock imprints as fast as she could. Draw mana from around her. Limit that with the gate based on how much it consumed, so it didn't take everything from the basement spell. Levitate the section of flooring. Reinforce it so it draws more mana if it needs more to stay right where it is. As the section of floor rose, Lily rolled under it and called Star to join her. If it will fit, bring the sofa. It might help hold up the rubble. I'm on it, Master. Star began pulling the sofa under their makeshift cover. Lily laid on her back and began drawing on the underside of the floorboards. Another spell. This one to push anything that lands on top of their cover to the sides, so it doesn't get weighed down until the spell breaks. Another spell, using the new technique she just learned. Let it fill with mana until she activates it, and when she does, a fully charged push spell would launch their floorboard cover as high into the sky as it could, with all this power around them, hopefully giving them time to crawl out. Another. This time to draw in an electricity nearby and make sure that none of the live wires would be burning or electrocuting them if they were trapped down here. Lily was about to start another circle when the shock vanished. It dissolved from her hand like it was made of dust. Huh? Master? Something's happening. She turned to get more from her backpack, just in time to see that dissolving away too. Oh, the whole backpack. Was it turning into mana? Or being teleported? Or what? She didn't know. A surge of fear coursed through her. And then, for a second, Lily was floating. She wondered if she was dead. Floating on her back in an empty sea. Like her first night after everything changed. Only without the boat. A void. An abyss. As big as the universe with only her. Then sensation came flooding back. Cold. She was so cold. Freezing. But her body wouldn't move. She was briefly thankful to be feeling anything at all. But her body wouldn't move even a little bit. It was like being roused from a deep sleep. Like that feeling in a really bad dream, where something horrific is happening, and you're only slightly aware of your body, but you can't make it move, or fight, or even scream. She tried. She tried with all her might. She could feel it bubbling up inside her. She was freezing. It hurt. She had to do something. Lily screamed and sat up. She was in the snow. It came up above her waist, even as she sat up. At least 2 or 3 feet deep. It was dark. So very dark. She could faintly see the difference between the branches above her and the night sky. Wait, branches? She felt around and found the trunk of a tree. Smooth bark coated with a thin layer of frost. It seemed like she had burst forth from the snow here. Had she been sleeping there a long time? No, that's impossible. She'd be dead if she had. Her t-shirt and jeans were not cutting it in this cold. She stood up as quick as she could, feeling her skin hurt as the snow fell on it. Wait, if the backpack disappeared, then Bay also disappeared. But it's probably teleported with her. She looked around. Thankfully, with the snow being white, she could make out a little bit despite the dark. There was a lump next to her. Lily frantically dug away the snow, only to find her backpack. Well, well, it was something. She opened it up and pulled out her jacket, but it was still so cold. Her teeth were already shattering. She had to do something or she was going to freeze to death fast. Star? Silence answered her. Star, can you hear me? Nothing. Maybe he didn't land right next to her. He would be better suited to this weather at least. It wasn't likely to be quickly fatal for him. She'd find him. But first she had to do something. Cast a spell. Anything. She found shock in her backpack and turned back to the tree trunk. Heat spell first. Gotta do a heat spell. She drew on the tree trunk with her shock. A simple spell. Gather ambient mana and heat. Even if the tree burned, she could figure things out from there. Nothing happened. Huh? What the hell? She put her hand up to the tree right over where heat should be gathering. It did feel slightly warmer. Fine then. She was getting better at this. No ambient mana? She'd use her own. She conjured a flame in front of her from her own mana and powered it by pushing her own power into it. The flame sprang to life. Lily breathed a sigh of relief, but holding the flame in this cold was hard, and in seconds it was out again. Oh God, what do I do? Start a fire, right? I have to start a fire. She took one more deep breath and yelled as loud as she could. Star! Entity B! Anybody? With a shiver, she tried to conjure her flame one more time. It flickered in her hands and gathered out. Anybody? The howl of the wind was her only answer. Okay, now stuff is starting to happen here. Now I'm interested. What is this? Where is she? Chapter 1.0. Lily's hands were going numb. Her magic was running out. She had already tried lighting a tree on fire directly, and it hadn't worked because she couldn't sustain the fire long enough to get it started. In desperation, she had started gathering smaller pieces as quickly as she could start a fire, but the heat in her body was dwindling and with it her life itself. She didn't even know what would burn and what wouldn't. Lily wasn't prepared for this, and the small bundle of twigs, bark, and leaves she had gotten together might still be too wet to light up, but she couldn't find anything drier to use, and her hands were going to be useless soon. She gathered her fire starting kit beneath a tree for some extra shelter from the wind. This was her last chance. She had to stop herself from just pouring all of her magic into the flame spell. If she incinerated this pile of fuel too quickly for the fire to build, that would be a whole new problem. She found the spot that looked easiest to light up, and applied the heat and convergence glyphs, and focused with all her might. If she could just focus heat in that spot for long enough for it to light up, whoosh, the fire came to life. It was tiny, but her tinder was ignited. Lily got down and blew softly on it, adding some more fuel. Please, please. The fire grew agonizingly slowly, but it was growing. She split her focus between adding more fuel and trying to warm her hands enough to retain dexterity. Visible smoke began to rise, and the flames blossomed across more of her little pile of fuel. The desperate girl breathed a sigh of relief and eyed her surroundings for more burnable items to add. Lily's teeth were shattering, and the wind and snowflakes felt like knives in her skin. But her hands were finally starting to gain a little bit of feeling back from being near the fire. If she could just grow it until she had a little bubble of warm, safe space, she could figure out what to do from here. A sudden noise from overhead caught her attention as the tree shifted slightly. She put the pieces together 1 second too late. The heat from her fire, the snow resting in the branches of the tree above her. There was a frighteningly gentle sound as the snow fell from above, directly onto the fire that had heated it enough to shift, snuffing it instantly. Darkness enveloped her again. No! Lily cried out loudly and dove, digging with her bare hands in the hopes that there would even be a cinder left. There was nothing but a soggy pile of half-burned tinder to be found. That was it. Her last hope snuffed out because of a tiny little mistake. She was going to die here. She couldn't build a fire like that a second time. She didn't have the time left. She knew it. Tears rose to her eyes and froze before they had finished making it down her face. Why? Hadn't Entity B called this a gift? What had she done wrong? Packed the wrong items? Cast a spell wrong? She was going to die and she didn't even know where she had messed up. Of course that was how her life was going to end. Of course her incompetence would catch up with her eventually. She didn't know why she had ever thought for a second that she could do this. She thought she might have heard a sound. It was quiet and off in the distance, but she could have sworn. Maybe it was Star. She mustered her remaining energy and stood, turning towards the noise and trying to see something, anything, anyone. Off in the distance, shining through the trees, she saw a light. She managed a couple steps in that direction, but whatever was causing it was too far off, so far off, deep in the trees. She opened her mouth to cry out, and to her horror found that with the snowfall and her being nearly frozen already, she couldn't make her voice carry at all. She thought she heard the sound again. A voice. Not Star, but a voice. It was a voice. Lily did her best to yell, but it might as well have been a mumble. She had to make herself seen. This was her last chance. She might still die even if someone found her, but it was the only thing she could do. Lily gathered all of the magic she could inside of her and cast her last hope. It was her light spell, with the remainder of her energy. It faded into being over about a second, gathering into an orb the size of a basketball that immediately started shrinking when she ran out of energy. But it was shrinking slowly enough. It would last a minute, maybe two. The desperate frozen girl fell forward into the snow. Suddenly it didn't feel so cold. The snow felt like a blanket as it covered her, shielding her from the wind. She could hardly keep her eyes open. Lily blinked. She was being dragged through the snow on her back. Someone had wrapped her in a little more clothing and was dragging her. Sacrifice, sacrifice. She tried to say thank you, but her mouth wouldn't open. Maybe it was Star after all, somehow. Lily tried to communicate, but nothing worked. She raised her hand up. Her scars were glowing, shining in the dark of the night. Wasn't she out of mana? That was weird. She almost laughed, but the star-shaped reminded her of her missing companion. Behind her raised hand, the clouds parted slightly and she caught a glimpse of the night sky and stars. A clear night sky with stars. That wasn't right, but she was too tired to consider it right now. Lily blinked again. She was in a bed. It was warm, hot even. Her skin felt like it was burning all over, but she couldn't move or speak. She wasn't even sure she was awake. From another room, she thought she heard a deep but feminine voice speaking to itself, but she couldn't make out any of the words. Lily tried one last time to call out, but nothing came out. She floated down into herself. Darkness enveloped her. A person! The lost girl had a dream. In the place where sleep and death meet, she met a woman. The strange woman stood much taller than Lily, although the form of her body seemed to shift and change so that the details never quite coalesced into a form Lily could make sense of. One detail always remained the same though. The woman was mutilated. A horrific scar, if such a word could do it justice. It was as if a great beast had reached into the woman's chest and gripped her very hard in its claws. To Lily's surprise, the woman spoke to her after a time, though she could not tell if it had been minutes or hours they had spent together in silence. You should not have come here, Fragment. I will not tolerate your presence. I don't even know where here is. I don't want to be here. I just want to go home. Lily withered from the revulsion in the woman's eyes. Pathetic. I'm sorry. I don't know what to say. I really never should have come here. I'll leave as soon as I can. The woman approached Lily as she shrank back in fear. The strange woman towered over her. Effortlessly, the huge figure reached out and a hand and plunged it into Lily's chest. The woman was screaming. Lily was screaming. The pain was immeasurable. She could feel the woman's hand clasp around her heart. She couldn't think, couldn't breathe, couldn't... What the fuck? Sacrifice. Lily sat up in a cold sweat, breathing raggedly. Her head was swimming, and she felt like an elephant had been sleeping on her chest. She was in bed. Light was shining in through the window, and she could see the snowy boughs of a tree outside. The room itself was sparsely decorated. It looked straight out of a movie cabin in the forest. with its plain wood textures on everything and clearly handmade items. Sitting was getting tiring, so Lily laid back down and stared at the unfamiliar ceiling. She was alive. Barely. Again. Someone had come to her rescue. Again. Some stranger? Entity B? Probably not Star. Star. He had to be nearby, right? Had he been rescued too? He had to be okay. Lily wouldn't be able to live with herself if she had gotten him killed. Star? Are you here? Lily croaked. Her voice barely made it past her lips. Her throat was so dry. She craved water, but that wasn't the most important thing right now. She waited, but there was no response. Lily cursed silently. She had to find him. How could she manage that, though? A spell? She didn't have a spell for talking to him at a distance. How stupid could she be? It was an obvious thing to have created before coming here. Why hadn't she considered that they might get split up? Why hadn't she thought to prepare for that, or even the damn snow? Now she had failed him, and if he was hurt or lost or worse, it would be her fault. No. No. Lily tried to get her mind under control. This would be okay. Whoever had rescued her had probably found him. So where was he? Maybe he was less hurt, so he was up and around. No, it was unlikely he wouldn't have been waiting nearby. Lily got herself together to go look for him. She staggered out of the bed, only to find that someone had undressed her in her sleep. Great. She fashioned the blanket around her like a robe, covering the important bits, and made her way out of the room. The main house was a small cabin full of the same kind of handmade furnishings. It was a combination living space and kitchen in an L shape around what seemed to be the only room. It was quite cozy, although whoever lived here had a very low-tech existence. If Entity B was a master of magic, as Lily suspected though, maybe it was less important. Looking around, she didn't see any spell circles though. Curious. Lily spotted her clothes hanging up by a wood furnace in the center of the room that seemed to be heating the place. It was quite warm, even a little uncomfortably hot for her. She ditched the blanket in favor of her clothes. She shrugged on her simple black t-shirt with a purple heart on the chest, jeans, and her jacket. Her jacket was great for a windy beach town and not at all suited for the snow, but it's not like she had other options. She'd take the blankets if she had to, but she had to find Star. Maybe she could work a couple spells to help keep her warm before she left. This was taking too much time. He could be in trouble. It was already daytime. She suspected he wouldn't freeze to death in this winter, but he could still be alone in a strange place, or have run into Entity B, and who knows how that would go. Lily was racking her brain trying to come up with a spell that could reach him, but she had no way to reference him in a spell that she could think of. The basement spell had to have some kind of long-distance targeting. Maybe she could dig out her notes and find a promising glyph. Her body was not in any condition for magical experiments, and it would take too much time. No, no, no. She wasn't thinking of anything useful. Lily wanted to hit herself. Think, damn you, think! It was no use. Her brain was full of fog and cotton. He was lost and she was to blame. This was her fault. She was lucky she hadn't died. What had she been thinking? She hadn't been thinking, just like always. Otherwise, she'd have made a spell to talk to Star from a distance before coming here. Now he was... Lily heard the sound of footsteps approaching the front door to the cabin. Thank God for interrupting her thoughts. Her heart froze in her chest. Another person. There really was another person here. A stranger. Years of agoraphobia reared its head in an instant, as though it had never changed, never left. She was transformed into the girl shaking as she had to make a phone call she had put off for months, hiding in her bathroom when the groceries were delivered, just about pissing herself over a meat madness announcement. She had never faced this demon of hers. There had been no other people, after all, just her and her dog. Oh shit. Lily ran for the bedroom and shut the door behind her, hyperventilating. What was she doing? She was going to have to confront whoever this was, no matter what. It's not like she could hide. Instinct took over. She was scared. So scared it was overriding her other fears for now. She heard the front door open, and some heavy footsteps entered. The door closed. Oh God, what was she going to say? What if this person demanded something in return for saving her? She didn't have anything to give. Was this entity B? Her mind raced, and then she heard the voice. A deep, resonant female voice. Miss Outsider, are you up? Did you find your clothes? Lily opened her mouth and tried to croak out an answer, but words wouldn't come. She couldn't talk to this person. How could she? She wanted to crawl under the bed and die. She forced her feelings down and tried to make herself breathe. Miss Outsider? You are awake, right? I'm sorry about undressing you. Your clothes were wet from the melted snow, so they had to come off. Say words. She had to say words. Otherwise, they were just going to come in to look for her. Any words. This was so stupid. Agreed. She didn't even know what she was afraid of. A little voice in her head responded. You know what you are afraid of. You're afraid they will take one look at you and see you for what you are. Failure, scum, not worth saving. They should throw you out into the snow. Lily swallowed nervously. Yes, that is what she was afraid of. You are in there, right, miss? Please tell me you didn't wake up after days just to run off into the snow again. Like a hot knife into Lily's heart, she heard the word days. She inhaled sharply and realized then that she had been holding her breath this whole time. And she passed out. In the battle of her soul, her terror for her friend had won out in an instant. She seized the momentum of this new fear and threw open the door. She faced her savior with wide eyes, her words stammering out of her in a deluge. Days? What do you mean, days? Have you seen Star? Please tell me you found him. He's a dog. He's this tall, white with long fur, kind of puppy-shaped, black mark on his forehead, super smart. Did you find him with me? The strange girl was wrapped head to toe in snow gear that oddly seemed to include ornamental horns and a pretty realistic scaled tail. She gave Lily the impression of some kind of overly dedicated Viking cosplayer, and she was also quite tall. About 6.5 feet by Lily's guess, counting the horned hat. So it's not a hat. Her snow gear was mostly layered in layers of wool cloth and fur. It didn't matter right now. Lily swallowed her fear and advanced. The strange girl seemed too stunned to speak. Please, answer me. Is he okay? He's all I have and it's my fault he's here. The girl cleared her throat and answered, after hesitating a moment. I'm sorry, Miss Outsider. I only found you. Lily bolted toward the door, ready to run out looking for him. The new girl grabbed her by the collar of her shirt as she tried to run past and stopped her. Whoever she was strong, and Lily froze when she realized what had caught her. Wait, I can't let you just run out. You'll freeze to death. Lily tried desperately to keep herself from crying, but the tears spilled over. Please, I have to find him. He's all I have in this world, and if he died because of my failure, I can't. I can't do this. It's all my fault. It's all my fault. It's all my fault. Lily slumped onto the floor and curled up. She couldn't breathe. Her heart was racing. She felt like she was dying. A cold sweat started on her skin. He was going to be dead because of her. She knew it. She couldn't handle this. She shouldn't have messed with magic. She should have just enjoyed their life together. How could she be so careless? It was one thing with her own life, but his? It should have been her that died. She didn't deserve to. I will say again, I'm pretty happy that there's another person here so we can calm this person down. Because it's like, I'm starting to get like, okay, now get your shit together, woman. The strange girl had gotten on the floor and was gently shaking Lily. Miss. Lily looked up at her and froze. The girl with the horn spoke again. I don't know what's going on, but he's a dog, right? He probably didn't freeze. Let's try to find him, okay? But first, you need to calm down. You're going to get yourself killed if you just run out into the snow. And then, where will your friend be? Lily nodded slowly and tried very hard to speak normally. Yeah, thank you. You'll help me look? The stranger reached up and removed the snow gear covering her face, revealing bright red hair, and a smattering of red scales like a lizard across her face. The horns were in fact not a hat. Well, yeah, no shit. Of course, Miss Human. Now let's sit down and... Lily's head was spinning. Lily's head was spinning. Not human. This person was not a human, which meant, where was she? What had happened? Miss Human? Miss Outsider? Are you okay? You look like you're about to faint. Lily promptly fainted. Well, look at that! There we go! The last thing she heard before fully losing herself to the darkness was a voice. It sounded like her own voice. Fragment. Class obtained. Fragment, level 1. Skill, heretical mana. Obtained. The fuck? Are we finally getting a system, people? People like systems. Oh, now it's chapter 38. Chapter 38? Question mark? In the ruins of a mansion on the coast of California, dust was slowly settling. The entire house had fallen in on itself, crumbling into the basement. Bits of it were entirely consumed and transformed into mana. The rest was now a heap of broken detritus. All was still. But that could not last. A spell activated, and a piece of rubble shot high into the sky, falling a couple 100 feet from the ruins. A hole from the sky all the way down into the ruined basement was left in the path of the projectile, and in the center of that hole lay a girl and a dog. Star rose and approached Lily, licking her face free of tears. She hugged him fiercely. What the fuck is going on? Everything's gone. I failed. What did I do wrong? He leaned down onto her and spoke softly. We are still alive. That's all that matters. He was right. Oh, holy moly of author notes. So, fancy meeting you here. This marks the end of volume 1 of Growing Lilies. I wrote a book, my first book. I'm actually still somewhat in awe. I've worked really hard, but I guess I just never really thought of myself as capable enough to finish a book. Then I sat down and did nothing but write for how long have I been writing? It's been incredibly rewarding, and I'm really energized to continue. But for now, I have a few small announcements. You may notice the change in how chapters are numbered. Yes, that will be consistent from now on. Oh, damn. I hope it wasn't too jarring. Changing it was a small detail for the narrative that I hope was fun to be a part of. If not, rest assured that it won't get any more confusing than it is. Anyone who has made it this far and is concerned about the shift in tone, rest assured that the tone, themes, and premise I've worked hard to establish are not going anywhere. If we've been enjoying this story so far, please place your trust in me. I think you'll like where we are going as well. To anyone who has read my book, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. In my wildest dreams, I did not expect the story to be loved so much. I promise I'll continue doing my best to give you a good one from here on out. As always, if you want to help out without spending a dime, please send the story to your friends. Follow, leave it. I don't know, possibly likely continue to be more than normal. Okay, posting. Yep, okay. Finish volume 1, done. But we're continuing immediately to volume 2. No break for us. And we will continue with chapter Interlude Gull, or G.0. Okay. His first clue that something was wrong came just minutes after waking up. Barnacle wasn't bothering him. Over the years he'd been living there, Gull had gotten used to the noise that made up his home. The crashing waves through the ocean eroded rock that made up his home were just background noise, however loud they may be. Even the sounds of the city above rarely were capable of waking him. Barnacle, however, would be on him like, well, a barnacle. hence the name. You couldn't scrape him off if you tried. It would have been endearing if Barnacle hadn't been so annoying. Try as he might, Gull could never quite get used to the annoying little brat always tailing him. But to wake up and not see Barnacle's little head poke around the side of the chamber Gull slept in within minutes was a change to the status quo, and one that filled Gull with a small sense of unease. I'm super confused already because sometimes Barnacle and Gull has capitalized first. Like, sometimes it's capitalized and sometimes it isn't. So I'm like, I don't understand if these are... I have no idea if it's names or if it's a thing. The caves carved out over thousands of years of ocean crashing against the face of the cliff were home to the Ocean Cave tribe. Naming was not one of their strong suits. While fairly safe from outside threats, the small cave system they lived in could be dangerous by virtue of wet and slippery rock with sea moss growing on it and the occasional swell of the ocean itself. Okay. They're both names. The official version got these typos fixed, but bleh. Okay. Okay. So when Barnacle failed to show up, Gull decided to go looking. Annoying or not, Gull would rather the slight embarrassment of being the one to go find him this morning, rather than the possibility that the little wretch was in trouble and Gull didn't even try to find him. His second clue that something was wrong came when he entered the shared common space in the largest chamber of the sea cave to find it also empty. It was a circular cavern of smooth stone. In the lower part of the room, water still ran at high tide, but a big flat area remained dry in all but the biggest surges, and there the Ocean Cave tribe had set up a cook fire with a stolen pot, and a circle of mismatched pillows, cushions, and bundle of cloth to sit on. The remains of dinner from the night before, a stew made from a few ocean fish and kelp, were slowly congelating in the pot they'd used to cook it. Gull was not used to waking and finding leftovers at all, much less a cooking fire that hadn't even gotten started. A deep sense of unease filled him. Had there been a raid? How had he slept through that, and why had no one found him? The Ocean Cave tribe was a tribe of rats. Not literal rats, that's just how they thought of themselves. The city on the cliff above them would have thought of them simply as monsters. Why? It was unclear to Gull. The people themselves may have struggled to come to a clear answer. Because they were dangerous? Because they were thieves? Because they were frightened to look upon? Because killing them was profitable? There were a lot of potential reasons, but it all boiled down to one simple truth. The Ocean Cave tribe was a tribe of goblins. Okay, now we have goblins. There's so much shit going on. I'm highly confused, but I will just let it ride. I'm also like, okay, so Lily was transported into a world, but then she fainted and came back to Star and her world in her house, right? But now we have an interlude about someone named Gull and a barnacle, and there are goblins. Okay. But, like rats, the Ocean Cave tribe lived under the city anyway. The caves that made up their home had a few points that intersected with the city sewers, and from there they could often sneak into the city, steal goods or rummage through garbage. Whatever they needed, really. They had learned to be careful not to be caught, because if too many got caught in too short of a time, the humans in the city above would send people down looking for them. A raid usually meant violence, though, and there were no sign of violence. The rest of the tribe was simply missing. All of their belongings remained completely intact. If the humans had come in the night, why had they not destroyed anything? Why had they left Gull sleeping peacefully in his bed? No, this was something else. Gull found his way carefully to one of the openings from the cave onto the beach, hoping to find his people had vacated the caves for some reason onto the beach. It was dangerous to do so because they could be spotted. But it wouldn't be the first time it had ever happened. Although if there was some danger in the caves, Gull would have been a little hurt no one came to retrieve him. The beaches were empty, not simply empty of his tribe. There was no activity at all as far as the eye could see. Gull couldn't even see humans aboard any of the boats that were out in the bay. In fact, a couple were getting dangerously close to the shore, and still no one seemed to be doing anything about it. He sat and watched in stunned shock for a very long time, during which he had even saw a boat run aground. Nothing. No one. Was this a dream? It had to be something like that. Although the rumbling in his stomach seemed to disagree. What other explanations was there? Gull retreated back into the cave and got the cooking fire started. He had a lot of leftovers to himself, and wasn't about to let them go to waste. Okay. Gull spent the rest of his day in his chamber. He wasn't hiding. He was definitely not hiding. Or scared. Oh, another agoraphobe. Whatever had happened to his tribe and the humans would probably be all back to normal in the morning. After all, if it had killed them, there would be bodies. Gull's prevailing theory right now was that he had eaten some very bad fish in that stew and was hallucinating this whole thing. So if he just waited it out, everything would go back to normal. At least, that's what he had told himself all day long, and even into the night. Only the next day, nothing had changed. He rose, expected to see Barnacle's green head poking around the side of the entryway to see if he was awake. But no one came. He rose and found his way into the common area, and no one was present. He went down to the beach to see that a few more boats had washed up onto the beach, and no one was doing anything about it. Ultimately, it was hunger that finally forced him to move. With no one to gather food, he was running out quickly, and if he completely ran out, he would die. It was as simple as that. Gull wasn't usually one of the goblins that did raids to the city above, but with him being the only one still here, there was not much choice. He felt guilty going into Barnacle's sleeping area and scavenging enough cloth to cover himself head to toe. But he told himself that when the little goblin returned, he'd make sure to share some of the loot. With that, it was just a simple trip up through the sewers. Well, for anyone not from his tribe, it would hardly be a simple trip. But every single one of the Ocean Cave tribe knew the sewer systems like the back of their hand. After all, even if you were not one for sneaking into the city, there were good locations to be aware of. Hiding spots, place humans dumped useful items occasionally, dangerous places to avoid, and more. In no time at all, he found himself staring out of a sewer grate at the main square of the city. It was deserted. There wasn't a soul in sight. Despite that, Gull found himself bracing for a sudden shout of "Gotcha!" and being hauled into the city square for execution. But no such thing came. After a solid 15 minutes of just staring, Gull pushed the loose grate out of the way and hauled himself up. The city square was empty. There weren't even sounds of people moving about or doing whatever it was people did in this city all day long. The silence was eerie, but still less scary than if there had been people around. With a shrug, Gull started walking the streets. He didn't really know what he was looking for, since he had mostly heard from other goblins what it was like in the city. He'd always assumed that the others were telling goblin tales. The buildings weren't made of bread, the fountains weren't stocked with free fish, and there wasn't a weapon shop on every corner. But more of it was true than not, to his surprise. It was clean and warm. The walls around the city protected from the sea breeze, and every little shop seemed to be stocked with treasures beyond his imagination, even just looking through the windows. But the first time he actually entered one was when he saw something out of his wildest dreams. A little shop with a text he couldn't read and a picture of a loaf of bread on the sign. After walking in, Gull found himself in a bakery. The glass case at the front of the door stocked absolutely to the brim with all manners of breads, pastries, sweets, and more. Gull wasn't sure how long he was standing still, staring into the magical case full of dreams. He finally snapped out of it when he heard the sound of a wet glob of drool hitting the hardwood floor. Like the sound of a shout to start a race, it activated him. Before he knew it, he was racing forward, trying to find a way into the case. He was about to break the glass when he realized the back had no glass covering it. He dove around the side and grabbed a fistful of the closest bread. Soft. It was so soft. Even being a day old, he'd never touched such soft bread before. And the flavor. It was incredible. Better than anything he'd eaten in his entire life. Light and fluffy with just a hint of salt. It was like eating a cloud. What he'd always imagined they'd taste like. He grabbed a second and a third, shoveling them into his mouth. The second one was sweet, with a bit of cream and fruit. The third one was savory with some kind of cheese and peppers baked into it. The fourth wasn't going down properly. He'd swallowed too fast without chewing, and he could feel the bread inching its way down his esophagus, but he couldn't breathe. He'd eaten too fast. He hit the floor and pounded on the hardwood floor with a fist. He could throw up? No. No. He absolutely wouldn't let this food go to waste, even if it killed him. But then who would eat the rest of the food? It would waste away in this shop. Unacceptable. He was about to push his fingers down his throat when the bread thankfully went down. Gull laid on the floor, gasping for air. After a few seconds, a single green arm reached from the floor up into the case for another piece. Sometime later, a goblin exited the bakery feeling more full than he ever had. A bag was slung over his shoulder, holding the remaining food items that he couldn't eat. If this were a normal raid, it would be time to duck back into the sewers. After all, this was already the best haul anyone had ever gotten as far as he knew. But there was still no one around, so why bother? Gull was feeling just great, and he wanted to explore. The next stop was the blacksmith. Gull had never seen so much fancy steel in one place. The Ocean Cave tribe had a few old pieces of steel that had been thrown away from above, or had been looted off of the bloated corpse of a drowned fisherman. But they were few and far between, and most of them had chips or other imperfections. In the blacksmith shop, though, Gull saw the same kinds of swords and armor that the humans wore when they came to raid. In a way, it was frightening, but now they were all his. He left his bag of baked goods by the door and proceeded into the shop. Knives, swords, shields, armor, even a flail greeted him. He had to use knives most often, so that area was his first stop. There were a few kitchen and fishing knives, but he really fell in love with his eyes found an ornate dagger. The sheath alone was decorated with a fine gold filigree in a beautiful pattern, and the hilt alone hinted at the kind of weapon goblins would tell stories about for centuries. Gull reached for the blade, and instantly the lore came to him. This blade, forged in the heart of the ocean by a long-dead seafaring nation, granted total dominion over the sea and the sea wind. It was thought lost for generations, before being found by the son of a blacksmith, an apprentice on a fishing vessel, then stolen by its true owner, Gull. The blade can cut through stone like water does. It controls the tides and can cut the wind itself. Its name is... He'd decide later. For now, he wanted to play with it. Part of goblin culture was creating lore for your items. A shiny knife was cool, but the blade of the sea winds was far cooler. Maybe Lily is a goblin then. This extended even to goblins themselves, who would often craft intricate backstories for themselves. Of course, all the other goblins understood that these stories were just that, stories. Often inspired by real events, but at heart a creative game meant as a form of expression. It was very rude in goblin culture to call attention to the fictional nature of these stories, even though it was assumed that everyone knew. When goblins passed, as they frequently did, they would be remembered in part by the stories they created and the lore of the items they passed down. Through this, even in death, a part of them remained. The part they wanted to express most. The part they wanted to be remembered. Armed with his new destined blade, Gull went outside the shop and gave it a few experimental swings and stabs. He didn't really know how to use it, in truth, but that didn't stop him. The sound of the knife cutting through the air filled him with a giddy sense of joy. Yes, this truly was the blade that could cut the sea winds. Gull let out a joyful shout as a small gust of wind hit the blade just right and the sound grew a little stronger. He couldn't wait to go back and show everyone. Gull stopped in his tracks and looked down at the knife. He glanced around at the silent surroundings. Oh yeah. He still had no idea where they all went, or if they'd come back, or anything really. For the first time, his unease at that took a few leaps and bounds towards grief instead. They would be back, right? He didn't know, but his desire to play had just evaporated. Sheathing the blade, he gathered up his things and kept walking. Maybe he could find something new to take his mind off all this. There was no point in crying. Goblins died all the time. If they were dead, they were dead. He wasn't, so he should be grateful for that and remember them. He should be living it up with his new findings. In fact, he knew just what to do. His eyes scanned over the city until he found the castle. All goblins knew that to go near the castle was certain death, but there were no humans here, so why not? The smooth paving stones of the main road that led to the castle were similar in some ways to the smooth cave floors of Gull's home, and yet, walking along the path, he couldn't help but feel awed by how the denizens of the city had shaped them. Forced them to be flat, perfect, and led in straight lines to where they should. As he approached the castle gates, the structure towered above him. It had always towered above the city, but from the beach it seemed so small. Now that he was right up on it, the sense of scale was almost overwhelming. Fortunately, the gates were open. The humans must not have been expecting whatever happened any more than the Ocean Cave tribe had. Gull was able to simply walk in. Of course, once inside, the building felt like a labyrinth. The irony of the maze-like sewers being completely known to him, but being unable to find its way around a castle was unfortunately lost on him. But after poking around for a while, he found his way into a surprisingly simple dining room. Half-eaten food still littered the table, as if the residents of the castle had vanished mid-meal. This dining room was attached to the kitchens and pantries. It had been sitting out for quite a while at this point, so Gull wasn't terribly sure about simply taking some of the half-eaten meats, but the fresh salad on the table was only slightly wilted. He grabbed up the bowl and continued on, scooping handfuls of the lettuce, tomato, and cucumbers that made up the plain meal. But as he poked his head around a corner, he saw something very interesting. A room stocked from floor to ceiling with bottles of wine. Gull abandoned the salad at once and went digging through the bottles. Occasionally, his tribe would be able to obtain some wine, usually when they raided a fishing vessel or the dock workers near the beach. It was a rare treat, but even the bottles this wine was stored in seemed to be much higher quality than anything he'd ever laid eyes on. It took a while to remove a cork carefully with the blade of the sea winds, as it was made for much grander moments. Gull managed anyway, and after a few solid minutes of tinkering, there was a popping sound and he extracted the last bits of cork. He took a sip. It was an extremely rich and smooth flavor, almost sweet. Gull squealed in delight and continued sipping on the bottle. As he did, he shoveled 3 more into his sack of pastries and continued on his quest. He wasn't sure where he was going. There had to be sleeping areas around here somewhere, he figured, and if he found one, he could work outward from there. He found a room stocked with a lot of gold and jewelry, and giggled to himself while he put on as many rings and necklaces as would fit. He found a room that smelled like the sewers. He'd never even seen a bathroom like this before. It had a seat so you didn't have to squat, and cleaned itself. It even had a working shower. The goblin looked upon it like it was magic itself. He noted its location for later. After a time, he found himself in a very large chamber with a large ornate chair set front and center, raised on a pedestal. A throne. It looked so cool. Gull dropped his things and ran to sit on the chair. It was, ultimately, a chair, so it didn't do anything interesting or lift off into the air like he was hoping, but it was quite comfortable. It was also large for him. He could easily curl up on the thing, but he'd be bored. The rest of this room was just big and empty. Sure, it was decorated, but there was nothing happening. The windows were cool, but they were all too high up to really spend time looking through. Gull decided to do the only natural thing. He ripped down some of the cloth on the walls and started himself a fire. It was time for a pastry, wine, and throne party. Ghoul is definitely my favorite character yet. Ghoul drank too much. He had no idea what alcohol was capable of in quantity, but he did know it tasted good and made him feel invincible. By the end of the night, he had made a game of jumping from chandelier to chandelier across his little campfire. He found a way to look out the windows from one of them too, although the alcohol must have been playing some big tricks on him, because he couldn't even see the stars. After a few hours of drinking, playing around, and turning the throne into a bed by stacking every pillow and cloth he could find around and onto, he finally fell asleep, only to wake in the morning with what he could only describe as death sickness, if he had anyone to describe it to. The birds chirping outside sounded like they were screaming in his ears. The sunlight was magnified tenfold, and his stomach was as untamed as the sea. Well, as the sea without his legendary blade, of course. With a weak groan, the goblin lifted himself off his throne and collapsed onto the floor. He told himself he was never drinking wine again. Then he decided that maybe just not that much again, in one sitting. It was too good to give up completely. But this morning all he wanted was to find his way out under the sky and lie down until he felt better, preferably with his eyes covered. Fortunately, he found that this room opened up almost directly to the outside through a courtyard, and he was able to walk around the outside until he found his way to the gate again. With only a quick detour to dunk his whole head in a garden fountain and drink until he threw up, then again until his stomach was full of fresh water. Finally, Ghoul collapsed in the courtyard outside the castle. He sprawled out on his back and just thought for a while. People hadn't reappeared. Still, he'd been prepared to get captured by the humans if they showed back up while he was in this palace. But they hadn't. Would new humans be showing up from other places to take control of this city? He had no idea. He also had no real desire to go looking for another tribe to join. Part of that was the lingering hope that he might look around a corner and found Barnacle and the rest searching for him. And the other part was, well, goblins usually went searching for each other out of necessity. There was no danger here. He could simply sit and languish. Oh, he'd need to figure out food sooner or later, but a trip to the shore and gathering up the humans' quality fishing gear would sort that out. He had water, he had shelter. Actually, his life had just gotten a lot easier. But at the same time, he was full of sense of emptiness. What now? Now that he wasn't struggling to survive. He could only party so long, and in fact, this morning he wasn't feeling much like partying at all. Instead, he just lay there on the smooth stones. He listened to the seabirds and the waves crashing below. He could do anything he wanted. So what did he want to do? He'd never had that question before. Not for more than an afternoon. Ghoul didn't particularly think of himself as a deep thinker. Usually he just went with the flow of what was happening around him. But now that flow, like everything else, was simply stillness. He was going to have to decide what to do. A crash interrupted his thoughts. It was beyond loud. He would have described it as sounding like lightning if it hit a rock, and that rock exploded into more lightning. When Ghoul opened his eyes, the sky was dark. The crash hadn't sounded like it came from that far away. He rose as quickly as he could and staggered in the direction it had come from. It was just over by the bakery, near where he had come up from the sewers. There was a light emanating from the area that he could see even several streets over. For a second he thought about running away, but then he thought he could hear voices. 2 people were speaking over there. He dropped everything and ran. Maybe he could find out what happened. Down the street he ran his heart out, then around a corner, then in a square where 2 major roads met, they were standing. The same square he had entered the city from even. 2 figures were in the center of it, standing opposed. A human and a goblin. The human was a woman, adult, and wearing black clothes. She stood taller than the goblin, by about 1.5 feet, and the more he looked at her, the less sure he was that she was actually human. He felt an overwhelming sense that he was looking at something far bigger just pretending to be bound to a mortal frame. She also was holding a strange device pointed at the goblin, and something about how she was holding it told Gull it was a weapon. But somehow the goblin was far stranger to Gull. That was because the goblin looked exactly like him. He had seen his reflection before in water and steel, and even just late last night. The goblin was him. He was exactly the same. Gull hid and poked his head out from around the corner to look in more detail. The goblin was wearing a long coat and strange clothes of a style he didn't recognize under it. Apart from the strange clothes, though, it was him. Just not him. He wanted to approach and ask what the hell was going on, but the way they two were staring at each other, he was sure conflict was brewing. The woman spoke first. "Don't bother moving. You're already caught in the spell." The goblin replied, in Gull's voice. "You don't have to do this. Aren't we friends? What happened to you? You promised me." The woman cut him off, raising her voice to speak loudly. "Come on out here, Gull. I know you're watching. Hiding won't do you any good." The goblin continued. "After everything we've been through together, you can stop this right now. You said we would break it together. Was everything a lie?" The woman addressed him again. "Of course not. We've been good friends up till now, Gull, but that time is over now. I'll grieve you, but this has to happen." "It doesn't. It's not too late." Gull carefully stepped out from behind his hiding spot and saw that the woman was already turning to look at him. She smiled, but the sense that he was looking at something pretending to be human only intensified. It was a smile with nothing behind it. Or maybe, with so much behind it, he couldn't understand it. Like ships in the fog. Not being able to make out how many or how large they are, but knowing they're there anyway. "Nice of you to join us. Come on, stand right there. You're a part of this too, you know." Gull spoke slowly. "Which one?" "Who are you? What's happening?" The woman responded politely, even cheerfully. "Well, my friend here is you. Another you. Would you like to explain, Gull? It's the least I can do. I'm sure you remember this little speech by heart, don't you?" Gull watched as the other him grimaced. The not him reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a pair of glasses. But before he could put them on, the device in the woman's hand went off, firing a blast of fire and light that incinerated the glasses in not Gull's hand. The other goblin laughed grimly. "Fine. We're really doing this, huh? Of course we are." He turned to address Gull, who was staring in wide-eyed shock. His clothes were still stained with wine from the night's festivities, and he felt like he was going to faint. "How do you kill a time traveler? The thing that people don't get is that time is deterministic. You're going to learn this lesson well. Imagine for a second you could move through time. A friend's child fell into the ocean and drowned. They come begging for you to save them. You have to refuse. Do you know why?" Gull, still not really understanding what was happening, shook his head. "If you try, you will fail. Every single time. No matter what. The reason is simple. You're there to save the child because they asked you to. If you saved the child, they wouldn't be there asking you, which means you didn't save the child. You can't. It will be as if the world itself conspires against you. Time is happening all at once. It's only our perception of it that makes it feel like it's linear. You can't change what has already happened just because you can skip around on the line." Gull swallowed and felt how dry his mouth was. He didn't understand this at all. He tried speaking. "I don't get it. Why are you here? What is happening?" The future Gull smiled sadly and responded simply. "How do you kill a time traveler? You make him watch you do it. She's here to kill us." With that, he turned his attention back to the woman. "So here we are at last. Tell me, do you feel like a victim of fate right now? Is your hand being forced by the world itself? I'm begging you, decide not to do this. We said we'd break fate together. You promised me." The woman replied simply, "I'm sorry, Gull. Please, I can help you. I don't know what it is, but let me help you. She shook her head. In the last moment, the future Gull turned towards the present one and shouted, Don't trust her! Her name is The device went off. A hole appeared where the goblin's chest had been. It was simply gone. It crumpled. Gull screamed. He screamed and screamed and screamed. He still didn't fully understand what was happening. He felt like he was losing his mind. He had just seen his own death. A terrible certainty gripped his heart. A certainty that this was inevitable. This was going to happen. He was going to die to this strange woman's device, right here. He drew his dagger and rushed at her. He wasn't a fighter, not really, but this woman had killed him. She had killed him. He closed the distance in no time at all and leapt at her. A solid wall barred his path. Whatever it was completely invisible. It felt like he'd just run into solid stone. The woman smiled at him and waved. He dashed forward again, this time from a different angle, holding his knife forward to pierce whatever had stopped him. It was no use. As he hit it a second time, the woman raised her device. Gull cried out, No! But it was too late. The device went off. Gull could see the energy gather at the tip of it. Everything slowed down. He could see the energy gathering, but it wasn't firing. He stopped moving. He couldn't move. A second spread out to what felt like a minute, and then an hour, and then days. A moment became infinity. Gull felt a burning in his chest and thought he was hit, but this was something else. Power. Raw power gathered within him. He had never felt anything like it, but for just a second he felt like he could make anything happen. Then the world went black. Okay. In a little bay by the sea, it was raining. The gray skies over the ocean water made the sea look black. The waves crashed mercilessly into the shore and the cliffside. The tides were high, and that meant that at the point of the cape the waves were high enough to reach the ruins of what had once been a castle. A long time ago, the ocean had eroded the cliffs enough for it to collapse into the sea. Remnants of a city existed on the cliff above, but apart from smoothed down stone that had to have been handmade, it would have been hard to tell in most places. Near the remains of the castle, a goblin's head broke the surface of the water. He was gasping, waterlogged, and had nearly drowned. He clung to the rock and tried desperately to make it out of the vicious surf. As one wave went, and before another came, he was able to pull himself up onto a dry spot, heaving. He vomited what felt like an ocean's worth of seawater that had made it inside him, and lay sputtering and coughing. The rain was frigid. He was alive, and yet, in a way, he was also already dead. Author's note. The first chapter of Volume 2, we're going to be doing 1 or 2 more interlude chapters like this before we get back to Lily. I'm really proud of how this one came out, and I hope you all enjoyed it despite it being quite a departure from what you've read so far. Yeah? I want to take some time to introduce a few other major players and world building for this setting I've crafted, and this was the first step towards that. Every time I drive through the local fast food shop with my dog in the car, I think, I wonder what she would do if she was locked in the fast food kitchen overnight, and I really tried to channel that energy into Gull. It turned out to be quite enjoyable to write, hopefully just as fun as to read. So Gull is also a dog. Everyone has a mind of a dog. Overall, I really like this chapter. I just feel like putting the interludes instead of some Lily right at the start of Volume 2 is a mistake, especially 4 chapters of them. When I go to publish Volume 2, I'm gonna move these chapters around, but they're all canon, gonna happen either way. What can I say? I'm based in Dogpile, right? No worries, no worries. But okay, so now we have a hint of a future evil Lily who kills goblins and time travels. That's new. That's very new. But I assume we will come back to normal Lily then, with Star in the basement still. I wonder if she will even remember what has happened. I wonder what Star remembers, if he even did anything. A lot of questions now, but more interesting questions than before, I would say. So I'm excited to see what happens next time.